Hello YouTube, welcome to another Explain 11 video tutorial. Today we're going to have a look at a cold and dark startup of the Flight Factor A320 Ultimate, which has just recently been released. As you may know, if you watch my last video on the Flight Factor A320, I did get the aircraft when it was in beta stage, and I've had it quite a while now and been flying it quite a lot, and I can tell you it is a fantastic aircraft. There's no two ways about it. It really is worthwhile getting this this Airbus. It's not fully completed yet, but you can go onto the forums and have a look at what Flight Factor have yet to do to the aircraft, but it flies fantastic and it really is a nice aircraft to fly. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump into the flight deck and have a look at how to set this aircraft up from cold and dark. I'm not going to use a checklist. There is a checklist in the iPad, electronic flight bag, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going to show you how I would start this aircraft up from cold and dark up until taxi. How to start the engines, etc., and set up the MCD or FMC, as you might wish to call it. Okay, so let's nip into the flight deck and have a look how we start the aircraft up. Okay, so we're in the flight deck now of the Flight Factor A320, and the first thing we need to do is nip over to the electronic flight bag on the left hand side there, and we'll pop on the ground power. Would be the first thing we do. And as you can see, the GPU now has lit up in blue, and we've got the blue on the ground power unit, so that tells us we've got ground power. We'll have a look at that in a second. We'll pop some fuel in. We need to call the fuel truck, and whilst we're doing that, we'll open the doors, let some passengers in, and also we'll call for the cargo as well. So fuel, we're going to put 5 tons of fuel in. 5,000 kilograms of fuel should be plenty for us. We're going to set it up as we would to do a flight from Birmingham EGBB to Dublin in Ireland EIDW. So we've got the fuel in now. We can remove the fuel truck there. It's gone back to grey. Put some passengers in. Let's have a look. We'll put a full load of passengers today, 136. Remove the close the doors and remove the stairs if you've got the stairs up there as well, and nip to the cargo, and we're going to put 1670 of cargo in there, and we'll just set that, and we can remove the cargo trucks now. Okay, what we need to do now is just nip up to the perf data page there, and we'll just have a look. What we're interested in is this bottom bit here. It's telling us the centre of gravity now is 27, and the trim position should be up 0.3. Now we need to know that a little bit later on. We'll have a look at that shortly. So, okay, what was you do next? We go to the overhead panel, and just get a better view of that now. If you look on the overhead now, we've got external power is available, so in green. So we click on the external power button. That gives us power to the aircraft, and we can pop the batteries on. And what I'll normally do is put all the fuel pumps on as well. You may not need the centre ones there, depending on how much fuel you put in. We'll put the lot on for now. Put the nav lights on, and seat belts smoking, and arm the emergency lights. And while we're on the overhead panel, we need to go up to the IRS switches and switch those 3 to nav. There we go. Okay, so we need to next step would be the MCDU or FMC, which is down the bottom there, and we need to have a look in there and set the parameters up for the MCDU. Okay, so let's have a look at what we need to do in the MCDU. First thing we need to do is go to the init page, and we need to tell the computer where we are going from and where we're going to. Today, as I said, we're going to go from Birmingham EGBB to Ireland EIDW. Now, a nice little feature I think of the aircraft is if you click on the MCDU, you'll get a pop-up like this, and the thing about this is you can actually use a keyboard to type in the information, which I prefer to do, or you can just type it in using your mouse. It's up to you. So we're going EGBB. We need to put a slash in there because we're going to EIDW, and we'll pop that on the top right of the MCDU. It comes up with none in green because we haven't got a flight plan in there saved from that airport to that airport. I think if you were to save a route in there, it would come up with a route you could choose. We haven't got one in there, so just press the return button. We'll pop a flight number in. We're going to put 1234 and a cost index of whatever you want to use. And the cruise altitude, we're going to put, we'll put flight level 200, just for the purpose of this tutorial. It's calculated the temperature at flight level 200, just put it next to it there. Click on the Align IRS button there, get those on the go. Next thing we need to do is just come down the computer MCDU to the right arrow. We've got a left and right and up and down. We need to click the right arrow because we need to request the weights for the zero fuel weight and zero fuel weight centre of gravity. Flight Factor have made it quite easy for you. You just press that button there and it puts the information in for you, and it will come up with how much extra time fuel you've got in the bottom there. So if that comes up with the minus, you need to put some more fuel in. So now you can see we've got some figures in there. We can go from this part of the MCDU now, and what we'll do, we'll put the flight plan in. So if we click on flight plan there, as you can see we've got EGBB on the display. We need to tell the computer where the departure we're going to use. Now the winds today are favourable for runway 15 at Birmingham, and we're going to do a 15, a WHI-1L departure. So we'll click on EGBB, we'll click on departure, we're going to use runway 15, and we're going to need to go using the up and down arrows here. We need to go down to WHIL and click on that, temporary into the flight plan, temporary insert, and if we just scroll down there, that will take us to WHI. Now after WHI we're going to fly an airway and to after WHI we're going to fly direct to Wallasey, which is WAL, so we're going to put that in first. So we click on WHI, and the next waypoint we're going to use is WAL. Type that in and pop that into there, and as you can see, if we just insert that, there's Wallasey. Now after Wallasey we will use an airway, so let's click on Wallasey. And now we need to go down to where it says airways there, click on that, and we're going to use the UL10 UL10, and we'll pop that into that space there, and that will take us to Penil, PENIL, and we pop that into the right side. It automatically puts the brackets in for the next airway and waypoint, which is going to be UL28, UL28, and that was going to take us to Leldo, L-E-L-D-O, L-E-L-D-O. I can pop that into the right hand side. Now, as you can see there, it's not in the database. Now, unfortunately, there is no up-to-date AirRack, well, from Navigraph anyway. I subscribe to Navigraph, and there's no AirRack for the aircraft just at the moment. They're still working on the nav data. So you will find situations like this where it doesn't recognise a particular waypoint. So what do? We'll just clear that LELDO out of there, and we'll try, in fact, I don't know, can we delete that one there? Yeah, we'll try, well, put Bagzo in, which is the next waypoint, and we'll go direct to Bagzo. There we go. And it's come up L70 there. As I say, it's something to do with the AirRack. We can't do much about that at the moment because we're waiting for the AirRack to be updated, unless of course you use Aerosoft AirRack, and I think they have got an AirRack which will work in the aircraft. It's no big deal, we can sort it out anyway. Temporary into the flight plan, and insert that, and now we've got a panel, a Barbara, and if we go down to the Bagzo there, that'd be the last waypoint. So we've got to decide on, usually you wouldn't do this now unless you were sure the winds weren't going to change at the destination airport, but we're going to just put an arrival at in Dublin on runway ILS for runway 10, and we'll put a Bagzo, because the Bagzo was the last waypoint, we'll put a Bagzo 1R just for simplicity today. Insert that, and that's our flight plan all sorted. And you can the ones in blue incidentally are the go around procedures. So what we can do is, whilst we're just on that, we can get rid of that a second. Oh, I can't show it in a minute because we're waiting for the IRSs to align. If you don't want to wait, incidentally, for those IRSs to align, you can go to settings, and you see where it says ×1 there. If we just click on that and go to ×10, and as you can see, that's aligned them straight away. So it's a nice feature as well. So if we go to plan over in the MCP at the top there, we can scroll through that. Let's just go to the start there. So we're going from Birmingham, we'll be sweeping round to the left, and we can scroll through the entire flight plan just to make sure there's nothing stupid in there, odd waypoints that are thousands of miles away, and the flight plan looks a nice route, and that's our route round to runway 10. Okay, so we've got a GPS primary thing coming in the display there. We'll just clear that, it's not important. Put that back to ARC, and so we've done the flight plan now. We go back down to the MCDU, and we want to go to, next thing is the performance page. So we click on the performance page button there, and we just need to put a few parameters in to the computer. Now we're going to use flaps 2, but just before I put that in, I just need to tell you to go back to the iPad and remember the performance data page. We need to have a look at this trim position to remind us what the number was. It was up 0.3. That's that figure there. So back to the computer. We're going to use flaps 2 today, so if we go in 2 stroke up 0.3, and we'll pop that into that square there. Next is the flex temperature. Now it is quite a difficult thing to calculate. It relies on all sorts of parameters for all intents and purposes for this aircraft. Somebody told me that the outside air temperature plus 30. Now how accurate that is I don't know, but it seems to work. Now at the moment we've got an outside air temperature of plus 2 degrees, so if we have plus 2 degrees plus 30 will be 32. So I'm going to put 32 into that flex temperature there. You don't have to put a figure in there. You can do a toga takeoff, which is just a full power, but this just reduces the thrust of the engines to save fuel. I don't want to get into that because it is really complicated, and to be quite honest I don't understand it, but this will work for a general flight in dry weather anyway. Now the transition altitude here at Birmingham is 6,000 feet. It's got 5 in there, so we'll change that to 6,000 and we'll click on that. Now I don't know why the V speeds are calculated by the aircraft automatically, but the V1 isn't. If you click on V1 it'll say not allowed, and I don't know why that is. What we do is click on V2, VR and V2, and then they're populated. We can put a figure in there just below or the same as the VR. We'll put 120 in for now. That's it. That's the MCDU setup, and we're all ready to go with that. So next step is to get some engines running, and before we can do that we need to nip up to the overhead panel and start the APU, auxiliary power unit. So what do we do for that? Let me just get a better shot at that for you. Here's the APU in the center of the panel there. So we need to switch the master switch on, leave it a few seconds, and then we can switch on the start switch. Both will light up blue, but we have to wait for the APU to spool up, and when it's up and running and available it will tell you there in green that it's available. If we go down to the bottom ECAM panel, we can see there the flaps for the APU is open, EGT is up running, and the N1 power is coming up as well. So it tells us that the APU is spooling up, and you get some numbers coming here as well, and it'll tell you there when the APU is ready. It says there it's available now. So if we go back up to the overhead panel and we'll look at that switch, and just say available. So we can now put the APU bleed on. We don't need the external power now. We can switch that off on the overhead panel, and we can go to the iPad, up to service, supply, and we can turn off the ground power unit because that's no longer needed. We're now running off the auxiliary power unit on the aircraft. So that's got the APU up and running. We'll set the Debarro. This is a nice little bit of software. It's called Virtual AWOS. I'll put a link in the descriptions, and just open up AWOS, type in the runway, the airport you want the information for, and it will give you the winds and temperatures and other useful information. The QNH is 1023 or 30.21. So we're looking at the 1023, and we'll just change that on the MCP. It's quite high pressure at the moment in Birmingham, but it's blooming cold. 1033. Okay, that will do us there. We can go across the panel now at the top, and we can put an altitude in. We're going to go 6,000 feet initially. I'll pop that in there, and if we just have a look down, if you want to set the transponder, you click on the clear button twice and put your figures into the transponder. We'll set that to all, and we'll set that to TARA. Won't switch it on at the moment. And you can set your radios if you're using Batsim or Veo. So, okay, we're ready for the engine start now. I'm not going to push back. I normally would push back and then start the engines as we were pushing back, but just for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to start the engines as we are parked up. Okay, so we've got the APU running now. We've got the APU bleed air. We can switch the beacon on to tell everyone we're going to start the engines, and it's quite simple to start the engines in the A320. Just need to go down just below the pedestal here and click the start button to start. Leave it a second or two, and then we can switch on the fuel button there, and if we keep an eye on the perimeters here, you'll see them all rising, and eventually it will tell us there that engine 2 is available, and then we can start engine 1. So we'll just wait for that to spool up. And of course it's the same procedure for engine 1. I do love this aircraft, it's really nice. Available there, so we can start engine 1. And as you can see, that one's starting to spool up now, and once we've got both the engines online, I normally switch the APU off. It depends on the company, the airline, that have different procedures for the APU. Some you have to leave it on, others you turn it off as soon as you've got the engines up and running. So we're going to turn the APU off as soon as we've got power from the engines. You can leave it on till after takeoff, it's up to you. Not too far off now. Fantastic, this cockpit. I've got it turned down as well. Incidentally, if you go to the iPad, there's some settings here. You can turn the panel quality down, reflections and the rain. I can't really, it is a bit heavy on frames, this aircraft. I can't run it when they're up high, and it looks quite nice anyway with them down low, so I'm not too bothered. So we've got the power to the engine 1 now. We can turn the starter to normal, and we can go up onto the overhead panel, switch off the bleed, and we can switch off the APU. The available light will stop on for a while until it spools down. Okay, so we've got no funny lights on the overhead panel. It's a dark panel, so all the switches should be in a dark state unless there's a problem, and as you can see, we're all looking fine. So what we would do now is taxi off to the runway. We're not going to do that. I'm just waiting for this part of the upper ECAM to change, because it will be asking me to set the speed brakes to arm, the auto brakes to max, and of course I need to set the flaps to position flaps 2. So we can just do that now with the flaps. We'll drag those down to 2. We'll arm the speed brakes by just pulling the lever up there, and we'll nip over to the auto brakes and we'll switch on the max. It lights up in blue, and in a few minutes you'll see in the ECAM there, it will tell you if there's any problems, that there will be in blue. So we need to do that before we can take off. There we go, we've got all greens, and it just says takeoff complete test. We need to just snip down to this button here and click on takeoff config, and if everything's okay, it comes up with normal, so we're good to go. What we would do now is just taxi off to the runway. set the engine power to 50%, which is about there. As soon as we got to 50%, put the throttles up to, if I can just, you'll have 2 clicks on the you'll hear 2 clicks as you push the throttle forward, and it's that one there is the second click, that's the first click. And then once you get a message in the primary flight display climb, you pull the throttle back 1 click, and that's it. That's how to get the Airbus up and running. It's from cold and dark, doesn't take very long. That's without using the checklist. That's how I set the aircraft up, and it works fine for me. Just one more little thing I might mention: if you load the aircraft up for the first time and your frame rates aren't very good, try clicking on the top menu, developer, and reload aircraft, because sometimes it will reload the aircraft, but it will give you a better FPS. I do find that works in a majority of the times. If I load up and the FPS is not as I would like it to be. So I hope you've enjoyed this bit of a tutorial on the A320, Flight Factor's new aircraft. It's well worth getting the aircraft if you like the Airbus. This is fantastic. As you know, I've been a big jar design fan for a long time on X-Plane, and I still like the jar, but it just hasn't got the level of complexity, and you know, it has got a lot of issues, or did have. I haven't flown it for a while. I haven't got the latest updates, so I can't really speak too much on the jar, but I do like this aircraft. It is fantastic, and it's going to get better and better as as Flight Factor add on all the other bits and pieces they're going to add on. So thanks for watching, and until next time, see you for now. YouTube, I nearly forgot. You remember me telling you when we looked in the electronic flight bag that we've got a centre of gravity of 27, and the trim would be up 0.3. I forgot to mention that we need to, after the engine start, we need to turn the trim wheel, which is this wheel here, to so that arrow there is around about 0.3. That's 1, that's 0.5, so it's going to be around about there. So we'll just turn the trim wheel slowly until we get to about 0.3, and that's 25. 27 is going to be about there. It's not got to be absolutely spot on, but you do that after the engine start, and then you're good for the takeoff. So that's something I forgot to add in there. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and we'll see you next time.